Hello, I'm Kendra, and it is time for another episode of my series, Yarn Tales. What Yarn Tales is an ongoing project I am working on to make myself a reading shawl. And this is going to be a shawl that wraps me in all of the books, which I have actually completed. So, I tell you a bit about the books I've finished, I give you some idea of what the story is about, I then go through some design materials, I write up a pattern and make up a segment for my shawl that is meaningful to me based on the book, and then I show you how it all turns out. So this is where we left off last time after what I called chapter 1, which was for Exit West, which was a story of a refugee tale. The book I finished after that, before I left for vacation, was called Matched by Ali Condi. It is a YA dystopian novel, and I enjoyed the fact that there are two kinds of dystopian novels, I think. They're like the dark, gritty, dirty, like violent, just scummy dystopias, and there's like the clean, perfect, overly regimented government, like just very like precise, and less like grimy and violent dystopias, but more like mentally abusive, I guess. And so Matched falls in a dystopian society, which is more like the latter. It is basically mind control by the government based on a belief that probability and doing research to get the best outcomes is the best thing for everybody involved. So basically the story begins, it is about a girl named Kasha, and it starts at her match banquet, which is where you find out who it is that you will be paired with, usually from a different location than you live in, and then they tell you who you're going to be paired with and who you will have as your mate forever. And it goes through and kind of tells the story of what happens in the time immediately following that, and some weird things go down with her matching. And it takes a look at her kind of having her eyes open to some things that are going on in their society. Now, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I was really enjoying the kind of dystopia it had. It kind of reminded me more of like Brave New World or Fahrenheit 451. Like, those are some dystopian books that I've enjoyed more than, like I said, some of the more like violent. I prefer the mind control aspect. I think it is more openly relevant to current society, and sometimes a better cautionary tale in a lot of ways. But I did not like the end of the book. Not because I didn't like the story. I was really enjoying kind of the pacing of the book, kind of the doling out of information, but plot progression the whole way through. It involves Kasha meeting some people and how she interacts with these new individuals in her life and the changes that are going on. There's a bit of a mystery to the whole thing, and that was all good. And then it seemed like all of a sudden at the end they went, oh no, we have sequels and we have not set this up. Must make big bad things happen. Boom, 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 boom. Plot starts moving really fast. And I don't know if it was just they had done a lot of world building and then they moved to plot, plot, plot. But I would have liked that plot and world building to be a little bit more meshed, or for them to just have made it a longer book. I mean, that would have been just as easy, I think, to keep the pacing the same. But they didn't, and so that part made me a little unhappy. And I think that maybe when I read the second book, I will not be as concerned with that. But the second book is unfortunately checked out. So, because I read it via audiobook through the free audiobook service through my library, which used to be called One Click Digital, and they've recently like combined with another company. So the name, I'm a little iffy on what it is now, but it is free through the state of Kansas library, which is awesome because audiobooks are crazy expensive. I also liked this was an unabridged copy because I like my audiobooks unabridged. I understand that I'm already kind of taking a lazy-ish way out by doing audiobooks versus all like written books, because it just means I can do other things while I'm listening to the story. But I don't like to give up any of that story. Like, I would rather just not hear any of it than hear an abridged version, you know? So, things that are significant about the story that I want to include in my shawl. Where did my ball o' yarn go? Ooh, oh, here it is. It just slipped. So the main color I want to use is this green. This is some Red Heart Super Saver in the color Spring Green, because her dress at the matching banquet is green. And green also becomes like a significant color throughout the story. She talks about the dress. And as you saw, it is the cover of the book has this green color. So I want to capture this. Their society also has 3 pills or caplets or some tablets they all carry. You carry a green one, a blue one, and a red one. And they talk about what they're for. And the green one is for calming. So I want to include the green. And then I also want to find a way to include this gold thread held double with the green, because she has a gold compact, which is her artifact. It's a society that does not place value on material possessions in the same way we do now, but people have the ability to have one artifact, which is like an item, just kind of a normal keepsake like we would have now. We have in quantity, well, you can have one, but it must be registered with the government. And she has a gold compact. So I want to include this gold, and I want to include a round shape, I think. I just need to figure out which one I want to include. I also think I might include some trees, because the trees on the mountain become important in the story. It is a place of transformation for her, and something that's just different. Trees are important. And the trees being part of the society or not part of the society becomes an important feature, and her mother is an arborist. So that is also important. So I want to try and put those things together. So now I'm going to look through my design book again, just for a bit of inspiration. I've talked about this before. It is the Indispensable Stitch Collection for Crocheters by Melissa Leitman. So I'm just going to look through. It has all sorts of just different stitch patterns and things, just to give me some ideas on shapes and such. Then I'll fill in the gaps myself, and I'll let you know what I come up with. Okay, so here is what I've come up with as far as my, sketch. Let me explain the crazy. So I am going to start out with some single crochets. There's 49 stitches across on my shawl. So I'm going to do some, plain, just single crochet rows. At least, I think I'm going to do 3. Because everything was very regimented, and everything is very planned out in their society. So that is what we will do. And then, to signify her match banquet and the subsequent matchings, there's supposed to be 1. Mysterious. So I'm going to do these lacy hearts. Note there will be 2 of them with 17 stitches between them. 17 stitches because that is the age at which you are matched, the age of 17. Then I'm going to probably put something in between, like a very simple connector, just to separate the 2 segments. But I might not. We'll see how that turns out once I get to stitching. And then I'm going to do these, which I recognize that the picture is very confusing. This is because it shows the actual stitches to make sunspots, which basically end up looking like circles, kind of. And I'm going to do that section with the green held double with the gold to represent the gold compact. And then I think I might do some additional plain stitching to get us back out. I'm going to skip the trees because I think they might be relevant in the future. And when I saw the heart, I was like, ooh, I'll do the hearts and the 17 to signify that whole thing, because that is a very big and important part of this particular book in the trilogy. And then do the compact because I feel connected to it. I don't know why. I really like that as like a metaphor in the book. And then that should be enough for this book, because I don't need to make a whole shawl about matched. I just need to make 1 chapter of my shawl. So I'm going to get this all hooked up, and then I'll show you the end result. Okay, folks, some time has passed, and my news section of the shawl, chapter 2 as it may be, is complete. So, What you can see is I joined everything together with a row of single crochet because that's very like plain and normal. There are actually 3 rows of single crochet, one here, and one here, kind of between the stripes and then on the edge, which I figured is kind of good. The 3, kind of maybe representing the 3 pills. We'll see. Maybe I'll do something similar as I do these sequels. I don't know. But there are 2 hearts to indicate the matching, which occurred in the girl's 17th year. So there are 17 stitches here between the 2 heart matches. Then we move on to our circular bits with the gold to represent our compact, and then a row of single crochet on the top. And as you can see, I held the gold double. I will need to weave that in, but I think for the time being, I'm just going to leave my tails out just to figure out what I'm doing before I do weave everything in. I have crocheted over whatever tails were convenient to do, like here, you can see they're crocheted over. And I had some other ideas of things to add to this, but I really don't want to eat up too much space on the shawl. I'd like to be able to fit a good number of books across, but I also don't want to skimp. So I think I did a good amount. It's actually a very similar amount to what I did for chapter 1. So chapter 2 is a similar size, and then you'll have to wait to see what chapter 3 is. I'll see you next Thursday when I'll show you the next installment or chapter of my Yarn Tales shawl. See you next time. Bye.